What if I told you that the most advanced computer ever built wasn't created in Silicon Valley, but was found rusting in an ancient shipwreck, lost beneath the sea for over 2,000 years? In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of Antikythera stumbled upon a Roman-era wreck filled with statues and treasures. Buried among them was a small, corroded lump of bronze that seemed almost worthless. But when scientists examined it, they were stunned. It was a machine of impossible complexity, the Antikythera Mechanism, a device that could predict eclipses, map the heavens, and even travel through time. A machine that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. So, was it a lone spark of genius, or the final trace of a forgotten chapter in human science? The story begins in the spring of 1901, when a group of Greek sponge divers sought refuge from a storm near the small island of Antikythera, between Crete and the Peloponnese. Diving into the crystal waters, they expected nothing more than to find sponges clinging to the rocks below. Instead, they came face to face with history frozen in silence. At a depth of nearly 50 meters, the divers discovered the wreck of a massive Roman trading ship, lying undisturbed for almost 2 millennia. Around them lay marble statues, bronze weapons, and amphorae still sealed with the ghosts of ancient wine and oil. The ship had once carried treasures fit for an emperor, but now it was a graveyard of forgotten glory. When the artifacts were brought to the surface, scholars and archaeologists rushed to examine the statues and coins. These were expected, understandable, catalogued with excitement. But then there was something else. At first glance, it seemed worthless, a corroded lump of bronze and wood, cracked and fused together by centuries beneath the sea. It looked like nothing more than scrap. Museum curators almost ignored it entirely. Yet hidden within that lump was a secret that would take the 20th and 21st centuries to fully unlock. Inside was a device, gears locked together like the teeth of a predator, dials engraved with mysterious inscriptions, fragments whispering of calculations and cycles. Something ancient, but somehow impossibly modern. This was the first glimpse of what would later be called the Antikythera Mechanism. But in 1901, no one could imagine the truth. It would take decades, new technologies, and the persistence of obsessed scientists to realize that this forgotten artifact was not just an object of curiosity. It was a message from an ancient mind that thought in ways we believed impossible. The shipwreck had given us a portal into a forgotten chapter of human genius. But the question was, what exactly had we found? For years after its discovery, the corroded fragments from Antikythera sat quietly in storage, overlooked by most scholars. To the untrained eye, they were just shards of bronze gears fused together by centuries of salt and decay. But in 1951, British historian Derek de Solla Price decided to look closer. What he saw changed everything. Using X-ray imaging, Price revealed what the naked eye could not. Over 30 interlocking bronze gears, meticulously crafted with teeth so fine they rivaled the precision of clockmakers from the Renaissance. Yet this device was over 1,000 years older. The mechanism wasn't random. The gears were arranged in a way that suggested a purpose: to calculate and display celestial cycles. Engraved inscriptions hinted at eclipses, the movements of the moon, and even the positions of the 5 known planets. It was as if this lump of corroded bronze had once been a miniature universe, captured in metal. And yet the more scientists studied it, the stranger it became. And the device could model the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period used to predict eclipses and align lunar and solar calendars. It included the Saros cycle, allowing its user to know not only when eclipses would happen, but where. And one dial even tracked the irregular motion of the moon, accounting for the subtle variation in its orbit, something that required advanced mathematical knowledge. How could an ancient civilization, without telescopes, without modern machinery, create something so precise, so advanced, that even today's watchmakers are astonished by its craftsmanship? Price himself called it a computer made before its time. The Antikythera Mechanism wasn't just an artifact. It was a time machine of knowledge, compressing the heavens into a box no bigger than a shoebox. But if such technology existed in ancient Greece, the obvious question follows: where did it come from? And why does history remember nothing else like it? Imagine holding in your hands a small bronze box and realizing it contained the entire sky. That is what the Antikythera Mechanism truly was, a machine that translated the chaos of the heavens into ordered cycles, dials, and predictions. By turning a simple crank on the side, the gears would begin to move. And as they rotated, the device displayed the movements of the sun, the moon, and the known planets across the zodiac. On its surface were dials showing eclipses, lunar phases, and calendar alignments, all with astonishing accuracy. One dial, for example, tracked the metonic cycle of 19 years, which aligned lunar months with solar years, a discovery crucial for agriculture and sacred festivals. Another dial displayed the Saros cycle, allowing its user to predict when and where eclipses would darken the skies. The mechanism even accounted for something that baffled scientists until modern astronomy. The moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. It speeds up and slows down as it travels around Earth. Yet the Antikythera mechanism built in a tiny pin and slot gear system to mimic this irregularity. How did they know? And here lies the most haunting truth. This was not a toy, nor a curiosity. It was a scientific breakthrough, a working model of the cosmos, centuries ahead of its time. When modern engineers reconstructed it using 3D printing and precision tools, they were stunned. The machine was as sophisticated as a Swiss watch, yet built in a world without lathes, microscopes, or industrial manufacturing. Was it created to aid navigation across the Mediterranean? To align religious festivals with cosmic events? Or was it a teaching tool? A way for ancient scientists to show their students that the heavens could be measured, predicted, and understood? Whatever its purpose, one truth is undeniable. This was not just a mechanism, it was a window into a lost way of thinking. But who could have built such a marvel? Was it the work of a single genius like Archimedes, or the last survivor of an even older scientific tradition? When scientists first realized what the Antikythera mechanism was capable of, the immediate question arose, who could have built it? The leading candidate was Archimedes, the legendary mathematician and inventor of the 3rd century BCE. Ancient sources tell us that Archimedes designed mechanical devices capable of modeling the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. Cicero, the Roman philosopher, wrote that he once saw a bronze sphere built by Archimedes that could reproduce the motions of the heavens. Could the Antikythera mechanism have been a descendant or even a survivor of Archimedes' genius? Yet there's a problem. Archimedes lived in Syracuse, far from where the Antikythera shipwreck was found. And while his inventions were famous, none have survived. If the mechanism was his, how did it end up on a Roman ship centuries later? Some historians argue it might not have been Archimedes himself, but rather a lost school of Greek engineers, perhaps based in Rhodes or Alexandria. These cities were centers of astronomical knowledge, where scholars studied the stars and invented complex devices like armillary spheres and water clocks. The Antikythera mechanism could have been their masterpiece, an ultimate fusion of mathematics and mechanics. But other researchers whisper a more unsettling theory. What if the mechanism was not a one-of-a-kind miracle, but a fragment of a larger, forgotten tradition? Could there have been dozens of such devices scattered across the ancient world, models of the cosmos lost to fire, conquest, and the erosion of time? If so, then our entire understanding of history is wrong. The Greeks may not have been dabbling in advanced science. They may have inherited it, preserved it, and passed it along until it vanished again. The Antikythera mechanism may not just represent one genius, but an entire lost lineage of scientific knowledge that stretched back further than we dare imagine. But if such knowledge existed, another question haunts us. Why does history remember nothing else like it for over 1,000 years? Here is the strangest part of the Antikythera mechanism's story. After its creation, history goes silent. This device dates to around 100 BCE. Yet when we look at the historical record after that, there is nothing remotely close in complexity until the rise of astronomical clocks in medieval Europe, over 1,000 years later. Why? If the Greeks could build such a machine, why don't we see a gradual progression of similar devices? Simpler versions, prototypes, or later copies? Why does the trail vanish into darkness? Some scholars argue that the answer lies in history's brutality. The libraries of Alexandria burned. Empires collapsed. Wars consumed entire cultures. Knowledge was lost not once but repeatedly. A device like the Antikythera mechanism, made of delicate bronze gears, could have easily perished, leaving behind no trace. Others suggest something more unsettling. Perhaps this machine was unique, created by a single workshop of genius artisans who never passed down their secrets. When they died, the knowledge died with them. But then again, what if the mechanism wasn't unique? What if it was one of many, part of a tradition deliberately erased or forgotten? The implications are staggering. If multiple devices existed, then humanity once possessed a level of scientific and mechanical understanding far beyond what our textbooks admit. A chapter of history that was not merely lost, but deliberately buried beneath the sands of time. And so the Antikythera Mechanism hangs in a void, a lonely beacon of brilliance surrounded by a millennium of silence. It is as though history itself hit the delete button, erasing an entire era of technological progress. But echoes remain. Across the ancient world we find other puzzles, artifacts that whisper of impossible engineering. Could they be fragments of the same forgotten science? The Antikythera Mechanism is not the only anomaly in our history. Across the ancient world, we encounter artifacts and structures that seem to whisper of forgotten technologies, moments where human achievement feels out of step with the era. Consider the Great Pyramids of Giza. For centuries, scholars debated how blocks weighing tons were cut, moved, and aligned with such celestial precision that they still baffle engineers today. Were they simply monuments of brute force, or the remnants of a mathematical knowledge we've underestimated? In Alexandria, the inventor Hero of Alexandria described machines that seemed like something from modern amusement parks. Automatic doors powered by steam, coin-operated machines, even mechanical puppets that could perform entire plays. These sound like novelties, but they reveal a culture already experimenting with automation nearly 2,000 years ago. In Mesopotamia, the Baghdad battery was discovered, clay jars that, when filled with acidic liquid, could generate an electrical charge. Was it merely a curiosity, or evidence that ancient engineers had stumbled upon electrochemistry? And then there are the massive stone structures of the Andes, like Sacsayhuaman in Peru, where stones weighing over 100 tons are fitted together with such precision that even a razor blade cannot slip between them. Each of these mysteries, on its own, might be explained away as coincidence, brilliance, or lost craftsmanship. But taken together, with the Antikythera Mechanism as the crown jewel, they suggest something more profound. Humanity may have had bursts of advanced knowledge, eras of innovation that rose and fell like forgotten civilizations themselves. What if the Antikythera Mechanism was not an isolated wonder, but one surviving artifact of a larger, hidden science, a science scattered, fragmented, and erased by time? If that is true, then our view of history is incomplete. We are not the first to reach for the stars, nor the first to build machines that mirrored the universe. We may only be the most recent. And that leads us to the most haunting question of all. What does the mechanism truly mean for our understanding of human history? For over a century, scientists, historians, and dreamers have stared at the Antikythera Mechanism and asked the same question. How is this possible? On the surface, it is just bronze and wood, corroded by seawater and broken by time. But at its core, it is something much more powerful. It is evidence that history may not be as linear as we believe. Our textbooks tell us that science advances step by step, each discovery building on the last. And yet here, in the 1st century BCE, we find a device with gearwork as precise as a Swiss watch, a machine that could map the cosmos with stunning accuracy. Then, nothing. 1,000 years of silence. Was the Antikythera Mechanism the spark of one brilliant mind, a lone genius who built something no one else could understand? Or was it the last surviving artifact of a broader tradition, a lost science erased by war, fire, and empire? To some, the mechanism proves that humanity has always reached higher than we imagine, creating flashes of brilliance that rise and vanish. To others, it suggests an even deeper mystery, that knowledge itself is cyclical, appearing, disappearing, and re-emerging across the ages. In the end, the Antikythera Mechanism remains an unsolved riddle, but perhaps that is its greatest gift. It reminds us that history is not complete, that there are chapters missing from our story, waiting to be uncovered. And maybe, just maybe, that rusted bronze machine is whispering to us across 2,000 years, "You are not the first to dream of unlocking the universe." A corroded fragment from the bottom of the sea has shown us something extraordinary. That humanity may have once touched the stars, only to forget the way. The Antikythera Mechanism is not just a machine. It's a reminder that our past holds secrets as vast as the cosmos itself.
So what do you think?
Was it a lone miracle or proof of a lost science erased by time? Oddiverse, where the unexplained meets the undeniable.